use the term religion, we're using the definition of the word religion as has been translated into the word religion, mostly from a Latin influence of religio or religiere, and it means to bind back. To bind back. Well, religion to me is binding people back into the old past teachings of doctrine and dogma. Then Jesus, Yeshua, came along and said, but you need to learn of me and take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for my burden is light. Now the word there that he uses for yoke is yuga, Sanskrit, which means the word what? Yoga. And what does yoga mean? Somebody tell me. What is yoga? To join together, not bind back. Now, you that come here to HeartLight, you can join us, but I don't want you to be bound to us. We're not here to bind you to our dogma, our doctrine, our creeds. We're here to say, come and join us together, that we can equally work collectively on a corporate level for the good, for the peace of the world. Does that make sense to you? So that's what we mean when we say, save us from dogma and doctrine and traditions of men which have made the innate word within us of no effect. All right, today is Chakra Day. We've been going through the chakras. We've been through 1 and 2, and today is 3. I thought I'd start with a joke. Is Joe here? Yeah, Joe's here. I always dedicate mine. I think I've done this, but I thought it was so good. I don't mind doing these again. I hope you don't mind hearing them again. In church on Sunday morning, a preacher was standing up at the pulpit preaching a sermon. After about 10 minutes, he said, if I had all the beer in the world, I'd throw it in the river. Then another one said a little bit later, if I had all the wine in the world, I'd throw it in the river. Somebody says 15 minutes later, if I had all the whiskey in the world, I'd throw it all in the river. Then he talked a few more minutes and sat down. The choir director stood up with a sheepish smile on her face and said, now we will turn and sing the hymn number 134, Let's All Gather at the River. So we've been through the first chakra, which is what our root chakra. This has to do with how we are going to experience the writing of our story, our human story, from the time of conception to about the age of 7 years old. Now there's fluctuation there. Some say 6, some say 7. I'm going to go with Bruce Lipton, who I think is pretty researched on this, and say 7 years old. So most everything that's going to happen to you in your environment is going to affect you and be a part of how you form your psyche for the first 7 years. And we know that that is our tribal chakra. So this has to do with the fact of how we depend upon a tribe, a family, a group of people to support us and take care of us. And our whole existence lies in that. And if you stop and think, that's very godlike. When you start thinking of looking to a God who takes care of you, a God who heals you, a God who feeds you, a God that takes care of you, well, this is what you come into the human story with, that experience of how are you going to take care of me? How are you going to love me? How are you going to protect me? And in a lot of that, sometimes there is a lot of dysfunction that goes on. I wish to tell you that all was perfect, but it just isn't. There's a lot of things in our story, in that first chakra, that needs to be visited and needs to be healed and changed in some way. The second one, of course, is the solar plex. And that's a lot to do with our fears, emotions. It's a water sign. So I don't want to get into all these, or I'll never get out of them. So that had to do with as we leave tribe, and now we start a school, kindergarten, nursery school, and we leave tribe and we start relationships with others outside the tribe. So let me say again, everything that is a part of your story with tribe becomes a pattern that is set for how that you will repeat that pattern throughout your life every time you're a part of a group. You may join a church, you may join a club, you may join something out there, and you will bring up that pattern of how you experienced being a part of a group in that first 7 years, unless that's changed. Okay? The second part has to do with about the age of 8 to say 11 years old or so, or 12, when you are beginning to go through your child stage, baby stage, child stage. And in your child stage, how are you going to be in relationship to other people? How are you going to be liked? Are you going to be popular? How much of yourself are you going to give away to be validated and be popular with other people? So that's going to be a pattern that's going to be in all your relationships. That first few years of those experiences are going to try to show up in every relationship that you have, whether it's an intimate marriage relationship or whatever relationship it is, that part of the story. Because each one of these chakras is building on the next one. You see, the sacral is building on the root. And today we're going into the solar plex, and that builds upon these two as we're building our story and co-writing our story. See, I wanted to believe at one time, and I was kind of in a part of a message that believed totally in predestination, that everything I do has already been written down by God. I don't believe that anymore. And why? Because I believe I'm a part of that God and not a victim to it. Therefore, it is my co-creative ability to create with my Creator. So therefore, I have free will, and I have choices that I have made and put into my story. Now, let me say this to you. You got two kind of stories going on. You got your divine story of creation, which is really good. I want you to know creation was a success. It is finished. It is finished. Creation needs nothing. You can't add to it. You can't take away from it. It is the isness of the isness of the isness of the I am that I am. Done. But that story is what incarnated into the beginning of the human story. Now, in the perfect world, your human story would be aligned with your created story. But that doesn't happen because mostly we forget even why we came here, what's our purpose of being here, and all those things are lost to the memory. Not lost, but lost to the memory. They still remain. That's why people should not fear going into the shadow and into the dark side of self. There's a scripture in the Bible that says there are treasures in the darkness. I think it's in Job. There are treasures in the darkness. And those treasures are your memory of your right mind. Your ability to remember. What is life about? And why did I incarnate into this experience? That would mean your parents, the religion you grew up in, all of the environment of all that you experienced has been given to you. And here's the thing that the ego mind wants to do. It wants it to project on everything and blame everything out there for our situations when we ourselves had the power to choose it. So we have to take some responsibility in the story that we have made for ourselves. That's important. That's important spiritual maturity level to get to, because if you don't, you're going to end up in a place like, oh, well, God's going to rescue me. Jesus is going to come on the white horse and take me away. That type of thing. And you're going to become complacent and not active. You have to be active. You have to take the responsibility of the choices that life gave you, and you made those choices to be a part of your story. But here's the good news. You can change your story. You can truly repent and think differently and again and change the story. I believe that. And I believe one of the greatest ways is by using pure, raw vibration. When you use a tuning fork or some of these other sound bowls and things like that, there is absolutely nothing attached to them. There is no real story attached to them. They're just vibration and sound. And it's from there that you can change the vibratory fundamentals of your story in that way. So we've got from 7 years old, then we got up to around 12 years old when we begin to move into adolescence. And that's what we want to talk about a little bit today. This is the chakra of personal power. Personal power. It is at the solar plex. It is the color of yellow. The mantra or the sound of this chakra is the Ram, R-A-M, Ram, or Ram, either way. The element is fire. Sensory function is that inner gut knowing. And the glands are pancreas, as well as stomach, spleen, liver, gallbladder, and digestive system. So any of these diagnoses that are showing up in our life is telling us what we need to change in our story. What do we need to change in our story? So let's talk a little bit about this interesting chakra here. In this chakra, you begin at this time to enter into your adolescence. Now, what happens in adolescence is you start experiencing yourself. You start feeling your body, hormones start becoming active. You start caring about how you look, how people think of you, and you begin to develop another part of your story. So as we've been through here in HeartLight, these different levels of babes in Christ, adolescence, and co-creative adult, we see how that goes with these chakras. Babes, first part. Then we go through we are children. Paul said, I'm no longer, when I became a man, I put away my childish things. So it is a place of developing a sense of self, which we know as ego and personality. Wow. So let's be careful with the word ego. Ego must not take the place of the devil or Satan or the wicked or the evil one, because ego in itself just means that. self, a self. So, who are we? Who are we? We are, at that point, starting to give away our power to become what is acceptable in the sight of society, culture, etc. So, the first chakra is earth, and the second chakra is water, and then fire. Now, these are three important elements that when working with people, I try to find where they are, and if they're stuck in that first chakra, I know they're just too earthy. They're too earthy. They're too much grounded into the density of the earth experience, not the earth itself, but the earth element of the experience. They think everything that they are is what the body presents, what the five senses gives them. They're totally without the opening of the higher aspects of their ability to see themselves differently from a spiritual level. Then there's people that come and they're too water, they're too flowy, they're too emotional. And it's really wonderful to be able to take an earth tuner and a water tuner and put that together. Because what does that make? Mud. Clay. In other words, now it can be molded any shape that I want it. But I can't do it if it's too hard earth, and I can't do it if it's too emotional water. I have to bring those two together to make a substance I can work with. Then I want to solidify it, so what do? I give it to the fire. That's what you do. Just imagine making something out of clay, a vase or something out of clay and water and clay, and you work that and you work that. Then what do? They put it in the oven and solidify it. So all of these have such an important aspect of how we can use these different elements to begin to remold and reshape a lot of our story that is causing us a lot of challenges that we don't need to go through. The name of this chakra in the Sanskrit is the Manipura, 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 which means in Sanskrit, luxurious gem. It's the navel at the solar plex, which is seen like a little mini sun. That's why it's called the solar plex. The function of it is self, power, a place in which we learn to be more assertive and not give ourselves away. Malfunctions of this can cause ulcers, diabetes, hypoglycemia, digestive disorders, and it is also connected to the Kabbalah in the tree of life as the Sephirah. You that remember that teaching, the tree of life has 10 different Sephirahs on it. And some of them are double, so there's only 7 levels, which gives you back to the 7 chakras. Okay? And the 2 that is represented here is the Hod, H-O-D, and the Nasa, which means endurance. The ability to endurance and stay strong and not give your power away is in this 3rd chakra. If we tend to do that, we become subject to more low self-esteem, not trust ourselves, and we start looking for other people to give us what we have lost in ourselves. So we have the Hindu idea of the chakra. We have the Kabbalah, mystic Judaism, in the fact of the sephiras, and then we also have it connected to the Christian ceremony of confirmation. Confirmation. Confirmation merely means conscious of self, and is under honor oneself. Last time we did the sacral, it was honor another. This one is honor yourself. Honor yourself. I got so much here, I just don't want to overgive it to you, but whatever. We'll try it. So again, let me review. First chakra is group and tribe powers. 2 resonates with the flow of power between self and others. And 3 is personal power in relationship to the external world. So these are the 3 that I think have to be dealt with before we become candidates or initiates to really enter into the inner work of spirit. I know we just want to bypass these 3 things and go right through the heart and go on up the chakra ladder into the higher spiritual things. And it seems, if we're honest with each other, we keep being pulled back from going too far into the higher spiritual realms. We know about them. I know that. I know we've been taught. We've read the books. We've heard the speakers. We've been to the workshops. We know about the heart, a lot about the heart. We know about the throat and speaking our truth, and we know all that kind of thing. But how's it working for you on a daily basis? How conscious are you to keep those things alive in your everyday life when you forget and you go back to that old reactive mood that will connect you back to something you didn't change in your first chakra? Like mistrust around groups. I don't trust groups. I don't trust what people say to me. May pull you back there and say, but you didn't heal this, you didn't balance it. Or it may take you back into the difficulty of going through relationships. Relationships are a challenge. Opening your heart to someone and loving someone and letting someone in to your heart on an intimate level, it's risky. And the ego mind will always give you the honeymoon period. Who doesn't like the honeymoon period? You know, that first time you meet and you like the same things and you do things, you're just so together until the stories start coming out. Your story and their story. And it doesn't always match. And oftentimes we live with somebody's story that doesn't match and just make the best of it. Or a lot of times we leave and we go find somebody else and get in their story. But nobody's doing the work. Because there is a story for 2 people to come together. There is a story. There is a story why 2 people can come together and do truly spiritual light work. But where we're stuck at is everybody wants a soulmate. Like the most ultimate thing is to find a soulmate in your life. And when they tell me that, I say, you are definitely on my prayer list. Because I know what the soul is working out. And it will draw people in relationship to itself to mirror in ourselves what we've not healed in ourselves. They will show us that. So I want you to think back, you that have been through a divorce or 2 or whatever, or a relationship that didn't work out, that you thought was going to be great and didn't. Instead of spending time feeling bad about yourself because you got into that, which is depleting the 3rd chakra, right? I want you to go and say, what did I learn through that experience of being with that person? What can I take away from that could help me to change my story about being in relationship with another person? Learn from it. Don't keep repeating the same pattern. Change the pattern. So, of course, you know, what I do is I bring it to the next level of finding your twin flame. That's what you want. Your twin flame means two beings, two souls that have come together, and they have each done pretty much of the work, say shadow work or whatever. They change their story enough that they don't need to work on each other, but they can come together and work together for the planet. That's what you want. I know it is, whether you know it or not, you do. You want a partner who is working with you and not being there for you, but with you. And I'm so glad for the couples that we have in this small of a group of people. And I don't know where your relationships are and your marriages are, but I'm telling you, you don't have to run away from them. Bring them up to another level. Work on them. We should maybe have that here more since we have so many couples. Maybe it'd be good to have more couple workshops and communication times in which that we can deal with this idea of having the best relationships that we can, that is not pulling us down into parts of our story that has not been balanced in any way. So no big deal. I mean, we know about these things. I just want you to understand that this is your 3 human chakras. This is where your first human story lies, and you're going to build on it. If you don't change the foundation, every house you build will crumble when the storm comes. If you're not building upon the solid rock and foundation, and then you try to build a relationship on that foundation, and the foundation is not secure, the house will not stand. And storms will come, as you know, in all relationships. There's stormy times. There's times to disagree. There's times like that. And how does that hold for you? So this is merely just the 3rd chakra. Nothing new about chakras. We've all heard of chakras, been a part of chakras for a long time, but I think just to revisit this and to say, okay, I'm ready to do the work that needs to be done. Now, what that means, I don't know, but I do think that there's a place for us to work on these 3 areas. Our infancy, our childhood, and our adulthood. So this is just kind of a vision that I have for HeartLight, to start having more of these kind of things that's going to help us how to change our stories in that way. The archangel for this course, if you're interested, is Michael. Is Michael. Foods, starches. Food is starches. Mm-hmm. Now you get into root chakra, you're more into density of meat and flesh and that kind of thing. Second one, you're more into water, that's vegetables. And then starches. So all these things. The planet, if you're interested, is Mars and also the sun, which would make sense. It is a 10-petaled lotus, and all kinds of stuff here I got that's not in any way I think important for us to go through, but it does give you a sense of what's going on here. So let's take a moment to go to the bowl, and we'll do the 3rd chakra and do a good affirmation to activate the story what's in our story, through the ability of being able to set intent for the highest good, for divine purpose to be made. I want to say something to you, and this might be something just to think about. We all talk about authentic self and pseudo-self and all that. If you really come from a more Buddhic teaching, really what you're trying to find is the no-self. The no-self. First, because the no-self is the place where everything comes from, including the authentic self, individualizing itself, right? So I like that idea of finding the no-self before we find the true self, and changing the story of our pseudo-self, which has been formed by outside influences of religion, education, etc., like that. So let me go over here, and we'll, of course, this is our bowl that we're going to be using. Let's all take a deep breath and turn our attention to right above the belly, your belly button, or navel, and just bring your consciousness to that level. Take a deep breath. And our intention is for anything that we are ready to change, any patterns of old that is not manifesting itself in the health, the peace, and the joy of our physical world, to come forth and to change itself to a new logos, a new word that'll be made flesh and dwell among us. Back and pick up our other two chakras. Solar plex. I'm sorry, sacral, solar plex. And together we will do a third chakra affirmation. Together. I am a magnet for miracles. Breathe. I am ambitious and capable. I have high self-esteem. I feel ready to face challenges. I am powerful and courageous. breathe. And so it is. Oh, take your hand and put it right at your solar plex, right here, just about within an inch or two. And just imagine yellow gold energy flowing out of the palms of your hand. And if you do the mudra, you can do it this way now. And breathe. And feel the white light going into your solar plex. Visiting all of the years when you entered into 12 years old and up to your adult. Let it visit the story of what it was like to be in school, how you felt about yourself and how you looked. How did you feel what other people said about you and how you look and how you dressed? Things they said about you as a woman or a man or a certain race. We invite the Holy Spirit to come in through this white light and change and heal all of the stories that in any way are still making us feel that we are lesser than you created us to be. We are whole. We are beautiful. And that every relationship has been there for us to learn and to grow. Breathe. And when you're ready, you can return back into this space. So these first three are the most important ones. I want you to visit these. These are certainly subjects that are easy to get online or in books and things like that. But I ask that all these things that I teach, I'm just trying to start something in you. I'm not trying to finish it. I'm trying to get you to start thinking towards something. Do your own research. Do your own meditation on these, especially three different chakras, this root, the sacral, and the solar plex. Will you do that for me sometime this week? Take a little time just to focus and bring your consciousness to those three levels. And let's start putting the axe at the root of the tree. I mean, I've got some issues too that I'm dealing with now, but I realize that I got to get to the root. I can't just mow the lawn and say, oh, doesn't it look good? But the weeds will come back up again and again and again. Not as a punishment, but as a way of reminding us the healings that we need to do inside of ourselves. All right, let us take a moment and turn this all over to the inner guidance of our inner teacher to take what you are to take from this very simple talk today. Nothing deep, just a simple reminder that this is a part of your story that Spirit wants us to focus on at this particular time here. Holy Spirit, we recognize you always as the inner teacher and guide to all truth. And that truth shall make and set us free. We ask today that the whisper and the wind of Spirit moves through our minds, taking with it the old cobwebs of old teachings that still remain deeply in our psyche, that blocks us from the wholeness that you created us to be, from the wonderful peace that you created us to have, to bring into the love that you are in all forms of our lives at every level and relationship. Thank you for allowing us just to know about these energetic databases that run through our body that holds the data, the story. Bring us back to our true purpose for this incarnation. We ask this in the name of the loving, loving presence of the God in us, the Christ, divine mind, divine law, divine principle that worketh in us.